Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We bring you stories of faith, love, and devotion. Yeah, just kidding, please help us grow by hitting that like button. Now on to the story. DNA is throwing us all through a loop, help needed. DNA. So a long time ago, I did 23andMe and was surprised when a person showed up as my first cousin, once removed, that no one in my family knows who he, John Jr., is. We talked back and forth, and for a while we believed it was a connection on his mom's side and possibly my mom's dad's side. However, a recent turn in events points that it's likely the opposite. I had taken a break from Ancestry, so I missed when the 1950 census came out, and recently logged into my account and decided to have a look. So, my mom's mom, my grandmother, was married to her first husband and living with him, and 3 doors down John's dad and grandfather family lived. So this opened up a whole new can of worms. John isn't really into Ancestry and assumed that perhaps my grandmother had an affair with his uncle, but that doesn't track or show how we'd be related. So, I pieced together this map using DNA Painter, and that's leading to a new problem. For this to add up, his father's birth parents would have to be both my great-grandparents. Am I reading that right? Red is my family, blue is his. Notes. John Sr. was born in 1935. John Jr. was born around 1960. Felice was born in 1930. Susan was born 1955. Is it possible John's grandfather is actually your biological grandfather? There would be a large age difference, but not impossible. You said his grandfather and your grandmother were neighbors in 1950 and your mother was born in 1955. If true, that would make him your half-first cousin. It's not likely, as she moved back to her parents and then married my grandfather, who then went to jail, and seriously 9 months from the day he was let out, my mom was born lol. Though it could be a possibility. Edit, wait. So John's nephew also shows up as my second cousin. From a genetic genealogy point of view, it sounds a lot more likely than the alternatives. Also, your presumed grandfather being in prison right around the time your mother was conceived is a major red flag emo. I'm with you. I'm suddenly piecing together some pretty big WTFs. Like the fact that none of my mom's supposed dad's family shows up connected to me anywhere. I accidentally discovered that my mom was the result of an affair. DNA update from this post, though now with more story. This has been an ongoing ordeal, though we now have confirmation, so I'm posting this. About 4 to 5 years ago I took a 23andMe test to see where my ancestors hailed from. Spoiler alert, I'm 100% white, and mostly British/Irish. Very exciting stuff. On 23andMe, you can see all the people who also took tests that connect to you, and a random man popped up as my first cousin, once removed. I chatted back and forth with the guy, John, and we couldn't place how we fit into each other's families. I had theories but nothing substantial, plus I was still new to ancestry research. Nowadays, I have a hobby in looking up family history. So flash forward to this year. In April 2022, they released the 1950 census. I had taken a break from ancestry stuff, so I hadn't looked at it for a few months. My mom texted me a random ancestry question, so I popped onto the site to give her the answer when I remembered the census, so I looked at the census. Small backstory. My grandmother was married 3 times. Her first marriage ended after a couple of years and produced no children. Her second marriage was to my grandfather and they had 6 children. He was abusive and not a great dude. Her third marriage was a short marriage that produced 2 children. All of her children idolize her. She was an amazing mother and worked multiple jobs to provide for her 8 children. 1950 census. I knew my grandmother was with her first husband at the time, so I was curious to see what it had to say. To my immediate surprise, John's family was living not 2 doors down from her. This was the first piece of information I had that connected our families. By this time, I had a better understanding of ancestry and DNA, so I started making some pretty big revelations that I had missed. I don't connect to any of my grandfather's extended family. I think I just accepted my family tree as is because we had no reason to believe such a thing. Especially since my mom is one of 8 kids and is the second child in her family. So as soon as I figured this out, I freaked out and called my mom and told her that she needs to take the test as well, with her oldest sister, who I'm 99% certain is the daughter of my supposed grandfather due to looks. My mom is in straight denial, but with my sister's help we get her and her sister a test. 23andMe. I had been checking my 23andMe daily, waiting for my mom's results to show up because I knew she'd miss the email. So, Saturday morning we get the results and surprise, my mom and aunt are half-sisters. So I let John know and now he has his cousins taking the test. We're 100% sure we're right, especially when I started looking up my mom's new siblings and the one guy is literally a male version of her in HS. It's uncanny, haha. My mom is still reeling a bit. I know she loved her stepdad as a father, but he was a terrible dude and she's aware of it. Which makes this a bit more interesting as he was possibly in jail when she was conceived or let out and then she had the affair. I've been struggling to find the date he was released. He was sentenced for a year starting in November 1954, mom would have been conceived about mid-April 1955, born at the end of December, but I know he was let out early. When? It's a mystery. My mom's siblings are pretty upset with the accusations of their mother having an affair and or being loose. In all honesty, I'm actually happy to not be related to the man we thought was our grandfather. Dude was married, with a baby daughter at home, and he assisted his brother in sexually assaulting a 17-year-old. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'm happy if my grandmother had a moment of clarity and had an affair with another guy, because why would you go back to someone who was guilty of this? So here we are now. Skeptical. Good job researching and uncovering this. You are not alone. Much of this is familiar from similar stories here, and from my own discovery of my grandfather not being my grandfather. Every family is different. It sounds like yours is taking it fairly well. At least your mom is still alive to test, and even more so for you to share the experience of this discovery with her. My dad was the result of an affair. So was his brother 2 years later, my grandmother with the same man. LOL. Great story. I'm glad at least you're happy with the situation. And also that you're figuring it out now. It's a lot easier to unravel stuff like this when people involved are still alive. I hope the affair was a happy moment for your grandma. There's of course the very real possibility that she was raped, but I hope that's not the case. What I really like about this story is how important checking neighbors in the census is. I have more than once been trying to figure out something like if a married person with the right first name and age is the kid of someone, and then when I actually look at the neighbors they'll be living next door to each other. Check neighbors, folks. Sorry to hear your mom's siblings are reacting this way. I've dealt with a similar situation in which families are very defensive of abusive family members, excusing their behavior and holding them in high regard despite some serious traumas committed. It's hard not to want to argue this point with them, but it might be best to just leave it. If they want to live in denial that the man was a saint, just let them deal with that themselves. I hope it helps your mom's healing process to know that man isn't her father. Since your mom's other siblings don't seem super excited about any of this, does that mean they won't be taking DNA tests? I just really want to know if your mom was the only one with a surprise father. So of the 8 kids, 2 have passed. I believe my cousin, son of deceased aunt, and my uncle are getting tests as well. We hope that by sharing these stories with interested folks like you, we can help people recognize the signs of a relationship in trouble, and avoid so many of these heartbreaking situations yourselves. Have a good day or night. Wherever you are,